Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. Stats Canada shows fewer Canadians headed south last month, with air travel falling 13.5% and driving over the border declined by 32%. Plus, Prime Minister Mark Carney blames the Canadian economy on U.S. tariffs. And the death toll rises to over 200 in the tragic roof collapse of a Dominican nightclub. Among the dead is a former Toronto Blue Jay.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks so much for joining us. Liberal leader Mark Carney took another day off the federal election campaign trail today to convene his Canada-U.S. Cabinet Committee after a jarring week of White House tariff policies. Acting as Prime Minister, Carney has warned of signs that the global and Canadian economies are slowing. Markets have been in turmoil since President Donald Trump escalated his trade war with the world on Wednesday and then abruptly changed course hours later. There are still steel, aluminum, and auto tariffs on Canadian imports to the U.S., as well as fentanyl-related levies. Carney pointed to U.S. tariffs as the reason behind the slowing of Canada's economy.
The general situation in the last week, there have been a lot of developments in terms of U.S. tariff policy, reactions from others, including China, really marked tightening in financial conditions, a slowing, the initial signs of slowing in the global economy, impacts that we're starting to see unfortunately, in the Canadian economy, particularly in the Canadian labour market. We reviewed our response to those tariffs, our core strategy of to fight, to protect, and to build. We left instructions for officials to ensure that the next government, whichever government Canadians choose, will be in the best possible position for negotiations with the United States, which, as the President and I have agreed, will begin from the start of May.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre made a campaign stop in St. Catharines, Ontario today, where he was asked about the polls. Several polls are showing the Conservatives trailing to Liberals. A former director of communications for Stephen Harper has been quoted as saying that blowing a 25-point lead in the polls is, quote, campaign malpractice, to which Poilievre responded.
Liberals and lobbyists want me to stop talking about high food prices. Well, I'm not going to do that, because single mothers shouldn't be going to bed hungry, worried about how they're going to feed their kids in the morning. They want me to stop talking about the doubling housing costs during the lost Liberal decade. I'm not going to stop talking about that. They want me to stop talking about the rampaging crime that's overtaking our streets and the overdose crisis Liberals caused that has taken the lives of 50,000 people. I will not stop talking about that either. After the lost Liberal decade of rising costs and crime and a falling economy under America's thumb, we can't afford a fourth Liberal term. We need a change with a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, build homes, unleash our resources, lock up criminals, and bring home a safe, affordable country for our people.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is making a plea to Canadians today to give his party an influential role in Parliament and not give another party a majority government. Singh has stopped insisting he's running to be Prime Minister and has begun asking voters to give the NDP enough seats to ensure neither the Liberals or Conservatives wield all the power. He says the Liberals can deliver positive change, but only when the NDP pushes them to do so. During a campaign stop in Saskatoon Thursday, Singh also took aim at Carney's plan to balance the operating budget by suggesting he'd cut health care.
You said to take Mr. Carney at his own words, and his own words are he's not going to touch healthcare transfers. So is it misleading to say he is going to cut healthcare transfers?
Well, he's one of the things that we know that he said he's talked about maintaining. Well, what does bankers speak for maintaining spending? Bankers speak for maintaining spending is freezing. Freezing is a cut. If you talk about healthcare, if you freeze investments in healthcare with an aging population, with a growing population, with increased needs, and with inflation, if you freeze, that is a cut. Freezing healthcare spending, maintaining healthcare spending is a cut.
Voters head to the polls on April 28th with advanced voting running from April 18th through the 21st. According to Statistics Canada, Canadians turned their backs on U.S. travel last month. Here is Chris Reynolds of the Canadian Press with more.
Canadian visits to the United States plummeted last month amid anger over Trump tariff threats and tariff realities, as well as annexation threats, and even growing fears about treatment at the border. In March, the number of Canadians returning home by car from the U.S. plunged 32%, nearly by 1/3, compared with March 2024. And that's the third consecutive month of year-over-year declines in travelers to the U.S., and the steepest plunge we've seen since the pandemic. So a real drop-off. The context is pretty stark. The weak dollar is a consideration when it comes to Canadian travel, but if we're trying to assess whether Canada's relatively weak loonie, roughly 70 cents for large portions of the past 4 months compared to the US dollar, is the main reason versus anger at the United States over tariff and annexation threats, and even fear of border detainment, we can look to December of last year. The dollar was at roughly the same level, maybe even a little lower at times than it is as it is now, and yet travel to the United States by car, as measured by returning trips to Canada by Canadian residents, rose 7% from December of 2023. And that was before the rhetoric around tariffs really ratcheted up.
Stats Canada reports the number of Canadians returning home by air fell 13.5%. Canada's former top trade negotiator, Stephen Verhoeven, says it's likely duties would fall away faster if countries around the world coordinate a response to President Trump's aggressive global trade war. Speaking on a trade panel at the Broadbent Institute conference in Ottawa, he says Trump's reversal on reciprocal tariffs proves the U.S. administration can be pressured to back off.
I think, given that Canada has retaliated against steel and aluminum tariffs and on autos tariffs and the initial tariffs related to fentanyl, I think retaliation can be a useful tool, and it's unfortunate that most of the rest of the world didn't see it that way, because I think if there had been a more coordinated response from countries around the world, then we could have seen this fall away even more quickly. And I think in this intervening period where we've got 90 days and countries are going to see if they can negotiate something with the U.S., if at the end of that 90 days we haven't made much progress and the U.S. reimposes the tariffs, if countries decided at that point that they should retaliate in some coordinated fashion, I don't think that they would last long. And I think that would be a significant rebuke to the U.S. about the merits of going in that kind of direction.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith continues her travels in Ontario to meet with business and industry leaders. On a social media post today, she wrote that this morning she sat down with the President and CEO of the Business Council of Canada, Goldie Hyder, to talk about opportunities for Alberta to collaborate with business leaders and industry in Ontario and across the country. She says, quote, with one of the most competitive corporate and tax environments in North America, Alberta continues to be a leading destination for business, innovation, and investment. Alberta Health Services stormed out of bargaining this week while meeting with negotiators of the union representing licensed practical nurses and healthcare aides. According to an online memo by the Alberta Union of Provincial Employees, AHS's behavior was, quote, outrageous, and that they insulted the bargainers, the union's president, Guy Smith, and the healthcare professionals who work for them. AUPE says the negotiating team is, quote, furious as the meetings ended with AHS walking away from negotiations, insisting on the same insulting wage offer with an outright refusal to give healthcare professionals the wages and contracts they deserve. AUPE was hoping to increase the wages of LPNs to be 84% of what a registered nurse's wage is. By comparison, the Alberta Nurses Union, or UNA, just struck a 4-year deal with the province for a pay increase of about 20%. BCN spoke with AUPE negotiator Kate Robinson, who says the union was hoping to bargain in good faith with AHS.
They mostly insulted the profession by saying that the LPNs are not the same as RNs, which they're not, but they work side by side, and they just came out of a successful round of collective bargaining, and that is what we were attempting to do. And they said that that's not going to work for them because they're not the same profession and they're not a fair comparator. A licensed practical nurse can, by the Health Professions Act, do 84% of the job of a registered nurse. And we think that they should be compensated to the value that they add to the healthcare system and the amount of responsibility that they have. You know, we're a different union than UNA. And we are prepared to go on strike. We will take a strike vote. We're prepared to do so. You know, UNA did not take a strike vote. AUPE is different, and AUPE will take that strike vote if necessary.
AUP is hoping to reach a deal in mediation. The Alberta government continues to lay out plans for its spending in Budget 2025, and the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology in Calgary is going to benefit. Today at the SAIT campus, Advanced Education Minister Rajan Sawhney announced a $50 million upgrade to the Taylor Family Campus Center. The improvements will include more recreational and athletics facilities, as well as an upgraded health and wellness center.
Through the health and wellness clinics, students in the School of Health and Public Safety will have hands-on integrated experiences right from the start of their educational journey. In the early stages of their programs, they will observe various clinic procedures, giving them invaluable insight into the healthcare system and its workflow. More than 900 students will benefit from these experiences, helping them better understand the complexities of healthcare and the essential roles of each discipline. The clinics will provide up to 195 partial or full practicum rotations annually. I know this will be a transformative space for students, faculty, and the broader community.
Sawhney says these improvements were necessary considering the SAIT student population has doubled since the center was first built in 1981. Police in Calgary say one man is dead and another is in hospital after a shooting last night. Officers say they found the two men suffering from life-threatening injuries in their northeast Calgary home and had them brought to hospital. While one man died, the other remains in hospital in stable condition. Police say they are speaking to witnesses in the area and are asking those with information to please reach out. Alberta Forestry and Parks and the Office of Emergency Services are warning Albertans to be on the lookout for bears. The province says bears are beginning to emerge from hibernation, and if you're in the backcountry, you need to exercise caution. In a statement today, Public Safety and Emergency Services Minister Mike Ellis said safety depends on awareness and preparedness, and Albertans should respect wildlife and follow safety guidelines to ensure both human and bear safety during this active season. The prime time for bear activity each year is from May until October. The province says bears may be attracted to unsecured garbage, pet food, compost, birdseed, and fruit. You are reminded to reduce those attractants if you want to avoid those unwanted encounters. On Friday morning, Lethbridge emergency crews attended a grass fire in the coulees right off of Scenic Drive. The fire occurred up the hill from the city's water treatment plant. Sections of Scenic Drive were closed this morning south of Whoop Up Drive for crews to attend the fire, as well as near the police station during a separate police incident. Crews continue to remain on scene to monitor hot spots and prevent rekindling due to the high wind and dry conditions. The cause of the fire is not known at this time, but wind gusts in the city came in at around 60 kilometers per hour through the morning. Lethbridge police are warning residents about a sexual offender who has been released from custody and is living in the city. 29-year-old Brent Miles Hansen has been released into the community to serve out the remainder of a 3-year sentence for sexual assault. Police say Hansen has a history of sexual offenses against women after connecting on social media or through dating apps. And while he is bound by conditions not to own, use, or possess any devices that can connect to the internet, police believe he poses a significant risk of harm to the community. Hansen is being monitored by the LPS High Risk Offenders Unit. For the first time ever, Lethbridge will host the Vibe Fest. This event showcases the talent and artistic of fine arts, highlighting the University Center for the Arts as a hub for creative talent in this city and southern Alberta. Vibe Fest will be taking place this Saturday at the University of Lethbridge. Dr. Heather Davis-Fish, Dean of Faculty of Fine Arts, says the university will open its doors to the community to experience that local talent.
All of the floors of the University Center for the Arts, all of our spaces are taken over with art, like the examples you see behind me. It's also an opportunity to open a lot of the doors to spaces that the public doesn't usually get to see in the University Center for the Arts. People who come to Vibe Fest can see the work of our students, staff, faculty, and alumni on display. So there's a combination of works that were created last semester in classes, final projects from this semester. We have the process for being included in Vibe Fest was an open submission process. Our new media department is celebrating its 25th anniversary. And so the University Theatre stage is taken over with an exhibition of 25 years of new media history.
So for anyone who wants to attend Vibe Fest, the pre-registration is encouraged, but it's not required. It's open to public. It is from 7 to 11 p.m. So there's going to be a lot of food and entertainment all throughout the arts building.
Research indicates those who attend or participate in arts, culture, and heritage activities are more likely to report excellent mental health than those who do not attend or participate. Interesting. Well, the Green Acres Foundation, the organization which has been serving and taking care of our seniors, is celebrating its 65th anniversary. The institution's CEO, Donna Koslavi, says the foundation was one of the first dedicated to our seniors in the province. The CEO says this celebration represents a milestone for them.
We're really proud of the fact that we can offer affordable housing with the services that people need, but they also become part of a community. The people living in our residences, they actually had more social interaction than people if they were living on their own. Every community became a big family. Is to make sure that they have programs in place for the spiritual, physical, mental stimulation of all our residents. We know that there is a real need for more affordable housing. We have been purchasing land at various places, and our next one will probably be on the west side in the crossings area. We really hope by late fall or early spring of next year that we can get into the ground.
Koslavi says the Green Acres Foundation has nearly 1,000 residents. Wow. 3 Lethbridge Polytechnic business students have been awarded top prizes at the Launch Point Pitch Competition. The competition was hosted by the University of Lethbridge in March, which judges top sustainable and unique business models created by early-stage entrepreneurs and post-secondary students. Our BCN's Landon Hickok has more details about the winners.
Polytechnic students Roberta Mistaken Chief, Seth Thomason, and Blake Chan all took first, second, and fourth place respectively for their business pitches for the Launch Point Pitch Competition. Mistaken Chief took first place honors for her indigenous food truck business that she calls Nitsitapi Treats and Eats. She says she wants to branch her business out to communities in Alberta where indigenous food is what she calls severely underrepresented.
Every reservation, every weekend has a powwow or their traditional ceremonies and stuff like that. So we would start up at the north end of Alberta, and every weekend we would visit a different reservation. During the off season, I do plan on doing private catering to the communities. So I will be having a home-based kitchen here in Lethbridge, and I will be starting here in Lethbridge and then hopefully broadening over the next couple of years to Calgary, Taber, Brooks. In the future, I'm hoping next year that I can actually be at the Calgary Stampede.
Thomason, meanwhile, took second place for his window cleaning business, which he was able to secure over 100 clients in the past year and win the fan favorite vote.
So I think it was just that we were able to show that we were profitable. We were able to show that we can make money, and that's one of the biggest things with businesses is actually just being able to make income. I had a really good conversation with one judge in particular, and he just talked about me as an individual, just being able to be confident in who I am. And a lot of our success came from door-to-door sales. And so I was just able to put myself out there, and I really believed in my product. That's one of the things that really helped me is I truly believe that I can wash windows better than anyone.
Blake Chan, who placed fourth, created phone cases designed to limit phone usage by fusing phone cases with uncomfortable elements such as sandpaper and cloth.
I think that there's a lot of people like me that really want to spend less time on their phones and they don't really know how. Or if they do know how, they just aren't willing to take that step. A lot of things that are trying to get you off your phone, a lot of my competitors are app-based or like installation-based. So you'd install an app and that app would be like, take a break, get off your phone. And ultimately, I don't think that that's really the model that you want to go for. That's subscription-based. And I just wanted a product that you could buy once and give it a try. And if you don't like it or if it doesn't work, like it's been a one-time purchase.
Mistaken Chief and Thomason have won cash prizes, which they each said will be put towards their businesses.
Well, how creative are those students? I love that phone one. That was Landon Hickok reporting, by the way. Well, here's a follow-up to a story we brought you earlier this week. The death toll has now surged to 221 as crews completed their search for bodies following Tuesday's tragic roof collapse at a popular nightclub in the Dominican Republic. Memorials were taking place Thursday for a merengue star and others killed when the cement roof collapsed about an hour after the merengue concert at the popular Jet Set Club in Santo Domingo. Among the dead are former Toronto Blue Jays reliever and 15-year Major League veteran Octavio Dotel. Very sad indeed. We'll be right back with a full look at the weather forecast.
The 7-day forecast for this Friday has us with a high of 18 and nice sunny skies with a low of 3. And for a wind advisory, winds from the west could be reaching 50 kilometers an hour and could even reach 80 kilometers an hour, so watch out. Saturday is going to have a high of 14 with a chance of showers and a low of -3. Sunday is going to have nice sunny skies with a high of 8. Monday is going to have a high of 14 with sun, alongside Tuesday with a high of 18. Wednesday is looking to have a 60% chance of rain or snow with a high of 11. And wrapping up the 7-day forecast with Thursday, we have partly cloudy skies with a high of 17. Looking at today's almanac, the average high for this time of year is 13 degrees, with the low being -1. The record high was set back in 1925 today, with a high of 24, and the record low was set back in 1940 with -27. The sun rose at 6:47 today and will set at 8:18 p.m. Looking at the national forecast, Vancouver and Victoria share sunny skies, with Vancouver having a high of 11 and Victoria a high of 12. Edmonton will be sunny as well with a high of 10, but Calgary is looking to have a chance of rain or snow with a high of 7. On to the rest of the prairies, Saskatoon and Winnipeg have sunny skies, with Winnipeg having a high of 18 and Saskatoon a high of 13, and Winnipeg has partly cloudy skies with a high of 16. Central Canada has Toronto with a high of 11 and sunny skies. Ottawa has a chance of showers with a high of 11, and Montreal has partly cloudy skies with a high of 12. On to the East Coast now. Fredericton, Halifax, and Charlottetown share partly cloudy skies, with Fredericton and Charlottetown having a high of 10 and Halifax a high of 11. And wrapping up the national forecast with St. John's, we have nice sunny skies and a high of 8.
A group of duty-free shop owners say sales have dropped off the cliff as Canadians steer clear of the U.S. Frontier Duty-Free Association Executive Director Barbara Barrett says sales are down between 40 and 50% across the country, with some seeing declines of up to 80%. Stats Canada says the number of Canadians returning home by car from the U.S. fell nearly 32% last month compared to March of 2024. It was the third consecutive month of year-over-year declines. Industry insiders say small and medium-sized Canadian food companies may not survive tariffs on both sides of the border. Food, Health and Consumer Products of Canada CEO Michael Graydon says some companies import ingredients and packaging from the U.S. He says finding Canadian replacements is easier said than done. Graydon and others in the industry say the longer the tariff situation persists, the harder it will be for some companies to stay afloat. A new document circulated to lawyers involved in Hudson's Bay's creditor protection case is raising suspicion that a company insider may be exploring a bid for the retailer's assets or leases. A document obtained by the Canadian Press described how processes meant to help the ailing retailer find investors or buyers will now include new provisions to ensure integrity and fairness. It says the protocol is being enacted in view of a potential insider bid that may involve certain members of management who are not named. No members of the Bay or its sister companies, SAS Fifth Avenue and SAS Off Fifth, have so far publicized their interest in the business. Hudson's Bay and the companies managing the sales process did not immediately respond to a request for comment. So with that, here is a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 572 points on the day to finish at 23,587. The Dow was up 619 points to 40,212. The S&P 500 was up 95 to 5363, and the Nasdaq was up 337 points to finish at 16,387. West Texas Intermediate oil was up $1.43 to $61.50 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 2 cents to $3.54 US. Gold was up 47.46 to 32.6345 US an ounce, and silver was up $1.07 to 32.26 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.79 per bushel, barley is at $6.79, canola is at $14.92, and corn is at $8.17 per bushel. Live cattle were up $1.63 to $202.47. Feeder cattle were up $2.40 to $285.18. Lean hogs were down 58 cents to 85.43, and the Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 72.10 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, Alberta Health Services stormed out of bargaining this week while meeting with negotiators of the union representing licensed practical nurses and healthcare aides. According to an online memo by Alberta Union of Provincial Employees, the negotiating team is, quote, furious as the meetings ended with AHS walking away from negotiations, insisting on the same, quote, insulting wage offer with an outright refusal to give healthcare professionals the wages and contracts they deserve. AUPE was hoping to increase the wages of LPNs to be 84% of what a registered nurse's wage is, justifying that LPNs do 84% of the same work as an RN. The polls are showing Conservatives making gains on the Liberals' lead. Questions surround China's involvement and support of Carney. And so much more to discuss with John Robson, columnist with the National Post and Epoch Times. That is all coming up next. Plus, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website or our YouTube page anytime to check out more of our interviews and stories.
The future leadership of our nation is up for grabs as election 2025 continues to roll along. Now, today's guest joins us from the Ottawa area to wade in on the federal election. Dr. John Robson is a professor at Augustine College and a columnist with the National Post, Loonie Politics, and the Epoch Times. John, great to have you with us today.
A pleasure to be here, even on this topic.
Now, the polls are finally seeing the Conservative Party starting to catch up to the Liberals. What is it that's changing the numbers? Is it are the Tories doing something well, or are the Liberals not doing something right?
I think the Tories get some credit for doing something well, which in a sense is nothing. They were urged to panic and abandon their message and their approach to the campaign, and they held it steady. Because, it was a very strange business, right? The Liberals were on track for a massive defeat. Everybody hated Justin Trudeau and his policies. And then finally, Trudeau got the hint, and he left. And they brought in Mark Carney. And there was this inexplicable, enormous surge of support, as though Carney were not in some ways perhaps less grating than Justin Trudeau, which isn't saying much, but a man with more or less the same policies. So it was very hard to understand, and the same team. So it was very hard to understand why you'd get a 20, 30-point swing in the polls. And I think that what's happening is that people are just starting to think, wait a minute, Carney's not the greatest thing ever. As a matter of fact, he seems to be rude to female reporters, and he seems to have vague answers, even to obvious questions. And he seems to be talking out of both sides of his mouth, and he seems to have ethical issues. And so I think that in some ways, Carney is just coming back to earth after a mysterious little trip through the cosmos.
So what is causing like this this huge like swing in the polls for the Liberals?
I think part of it is that they are still the natural governing party. People tend to forget that the Conservatives, largely through, in my view, their own failings, win a majority federally once a generation, right? They won in 2011, they won in 84, and then were re-elected in 88. They won a majority in 58, and they won a majority in 1930. They don't normally win. And so in some sense, it takes the Liberals doing something especially bad to lose. But of course, with Justin Trudeau, they'd combined disastrous policies with an infuriating frontman. Trudeau was so smug and so self-satisfied and had such an appalling sneer on his face much of the time. And his sunny ways had long since turned to snarls. But also, we've had the worst growth pretty much in the OECD. We've had division nationally, and they keep announcing these marvelous policies they had no idea how to implement. And so this gave the Tories a bit of a boost. And then people thought, okay, well, we're done with Trudeau. Maybe we'll just go back to normal. But as I say, again, there is this question, does Mark Carney really actually understand how to implement policy? Does he understand why, though the federal public service has grown so much in the last 10 years, service hasn't improved? Does he really know how to boost growth? Is he sincere when he says he wants to develop conventional energy? And why did his company, hide its assets, or well, not hide them, but move them offshore to a bicycle shop in Bermuda? And even Brian Lilly's question: where has he paid his taxes personally in the last 4 years? Or when he was asked, why do the Chinese want you to win? And he was like, I have no idea. As if he hasn't been cozying up to Xi Jinping and the mayor of Beijing and so forth for years. So he's starting to look like a kind of dubious candidate, and that has got to help the Tories, but they are fighting a headwind. Liberals win elections unless they lose them in this country federally.
Right, so you mentioned Brian Lilly, because he had an interesting column in the Toronto Sun pointing out that Mark Carney hasn't been very clear when he's asked about where he's filed his personal income taxes over the last number of years, considering he's lived out of the country for quite a number of years. So why should that be such a difficult question to answer?
This, to me, is in fact exactly the question. Had he had an answer, whether he'd said, well, I filed them in Canada, or whether he'd said, I got behind and I was still filing from Britain, but I'm fixing that, or if he'd said, actually, legally speaking, because of where the income was, I had to file there, any of these answers would have been fine. But the one of, how dare you ask me, you peasants? What is my wealth to you? You wouldn't even recognize it if you saw it. This kind of attitude on his part, one of the things about Carney that's odd is he seems to react very badly to being challenged. And you'd think an international titan of finance would have been sitting in board meetings where there was a vigorous exchange of ideas, and people would sometimes have said to him, no, you're wrong about that, or how can you put that forward as a sensible idea? You'd think he'd have been dealing with other giants of finance at Davos, and they'd have been, having a clash of ideas. But instead, he seems to be astonished and offended when asked even fairly basic things. And, no wonder his handlers want him to bore his way into power, because when he goes off script, and this was also true of Justin Trudeau, the result is pretty much, tongue in the electric socket. And they must be sitting there horrified every time he starts improvising.
Now, with the threat of U.S. tariffs, Canadians seem to be more favorable towards building pipelines. And now the Liberals suddenly do a complete about-face, promising to speed up major natural resource project approvals. But yet Mark Carney is still on the record stating that he will not repeal Bill C-69.
Well, yeah, and again, I think Carney's digging himself a deep hole, because he seems to be one of these politicians who will say anything I mean, you try squaring what he's now saying about conventional energy with what's in his book, Values, but who will also tell you that he's going to obstruct and build these energy programs in such a way that his words don't even seem to relate to one another, let alone to his thoughts, whatever they might be. You never get the feeling that Mark Carney is getting in trouble because he's thinking aloud from first principles in a way that isn't all that polished. You get the feeling that he's, again, tongue and brain are just disconnected from one another, and possibly internally they have breakdowns of communication as well. And this is all the stuff, I mean, he's meant to be this, steady at the helm, international banker, understands economics better than anybody, didn't Doug Ford say? And yet he doesn't talk like a guy whose problem is that he's too intellectual or too coherent. He talks like a guy who just seems to have no idea what he's saying or how any of it would connect. And this is very much not what we were expecting. Smoothly wrong would be one thing, but this, none of it adds up, and it's all sort of tongue-tied. Not to mention his French. He says he's fine in French. Well, let me tell you something. My French isn't that great, and I know it. But compared to him, I'm Voltaire.
Now, it has come to light that the Chinese Communist Party is actively trying to influence our federal election and apparently trying to muster support for Mark Carney. What's your take on this issue?
This is one of these issues, again, which I have to be careful that maybe not everybody feels as strongly about it as I do, but the Liberal Party has been far too friendly to China for a long time. You go back to Trudeau Sr., but the business interests, Power Corp, all this kind of stuff, the way that former politicians got on the China gravy train. And so when you get this, and again with Mark Carney, whose business dealings in China are unsettling, to put it mildly, and then you find that they're blowing the whistle on this, and we had this previous concern with election interference, and Carney's like, officer, I have no idea how that Chinese endorsement got in my pocket. How could he not be ready? And as Terry Glavin said, well, the rest of us know why they want you to win, so who do you think you're fooling? And why such an amateurish response? He should have been ready to say something like, we respect China as a great power, we're prepared to deal with them on a basis of fairness, but we will stand up for Canadian sovereignty there just as we do in the United States, and I don't want their endorsement, and I have no use for it, and they can take it back. Why wasn't he ready to say that? Instead to say, I'll just leave it at that. Oh, no, you won't, because we think you're the Manchurian candidate. We think you are seriously, your loyalty to Canada is actually questionable. And every time you act shifty and dismissive, you make it worse. Plus, we also now think you're a political idiot because you almost couldn't have had a worse response other than to sing a patriotic Chinese song in Chinese, like the candidate that he got to replace the candidate who was too pro-China. I mean, how on earth do they do this kind of thing and not have us think your loyalties are divided or suspect?
Now, foreign policy with Israel came up at a Liberal rally in Calgary when a heckler shouted that genocide was happening in Palestine. Carney replied by saying, I know, that's why we have an arms embargo. What do we know about the Middle East policies of Carney and Poilievre?
Well, we just found out something about Mark Carney's, didn't we? Again, when imagines the handlers pulling duct tape off a roll and diving over the podium to strap it on, because how do you take that one back? Israel's committing a genocide, and that's why there's an arms embargo. We hope they lose. Well, what's next? Death to Jews? This is incredible. Poilievre is much sounder on this kind of thing. I mean, he has the right instincts, but in this case, he also seems to me to have the right policies. He understands that Israel is a democracy with a profound respect for human life and human rights that is besieged by a bunch of maniacal enemies who want to commit a genocide against the Jews. And so when it comes to foreign policy, Poilievre is better, although again, he's not going to spend enough on defense, and because he'd have to cut spending on social programs, he's not going to do that because he thinks they buy votes. So they're all, I'm not a big fan of virtually any politicians. I find them oily and evasive and inconsistent and hypocritical and weak-kneed and so on, and those are their good qualities. But when it comes to the Middle East, it's such an acid test. Do you stand with Israel or do you stand with the Islamists? Because there's no middle ground. And Carney seems to have come out on behalf of the Islamists because he didn't have time to think about what he was saying. But then you assume, therefore, that what you got there was the real Mark Carney. And that's a horrifying thought.
Now, what's happened to Jagmeet Singh and the NDP in all of this? Like, where has he dropped the ball, and is there anything he can do to turn things around for him?
Well, Jagmeet Singh seems to me to be, in the words of Sapper, a licensed buffoon. You know, he spent 5 years saying the Liberals are terrible plutocrats, they're ripping you off, they're evil and sinister, they're in league with the Tories, and then voting with them. And at some point you think to yourself, a party that can't see that their leader is a fool is full of fools. I mean, I wouldn't agree with the NDP's rhetoric and their way of thinking about the world anyway, but if you think that way, why are you propping up the Liberals? There's no upside to it, and now they're getting their comeuppance. People are like, oh, well, if the NDP thinks the Liberals are right, I guess we should vote Liberal. And it just seems to me that the Jagmeet Singh is a DEI hire, and they're only keeping him on because he's a person of color. Let's be blunt about that. They'd have gotten rid of him in a heartbeat if he was a white guy, because he's terrible. He's just an unspeakably bad leader. The party's in disarray. Their popularity's in the dumpster. They're been behaving like idiots. Why would you keep this guy on?
Now, what is your fearless prediction for the outcome of this federal election?
You put me on the spot there because I'm so baffled why anybody would vote Liberal that I'm inclined to think that they won't, and yet I think that they will. I am going to guess that the Conservatives will actually get a plurality in the Commons, but they will not get a majority. And then we're going to be in trouble because I suspect we'll get another Liberal minority because all the other parties are Social Democrat. But please, nobody make book based on that, because I can't see why anybody would really vote for any of these parties. And yet I know that they're going to vote for one or the other of them. So that's a very weak prediction.
Dr. John Robson is a professor at Augustine College and a newspaper columnist. Thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure.
Every year, Canadians lose millions of dollars to scammers. Why and how does this happen, and what can we do to avoid getting caught in a scam? Joining me now to talk about this is Odetta Durofte. She's the manager of community outreach and education with the Alberta and East Kootenay branch of the Better Business Bureau. Good to have you with us, Odetta.
Thank you for having me this morning.
So first of all, can you explain to our viewers what the BBB is all about, and how would you typically be of assistance to a Lethbridge business person, for example?
Yeah, so the Better Business Bureau is a nonprofit organization who strives to create trust between consumers and businesses. We've been serving Alberta, including the Lethbridge area, for over 70 years. We have a website, bbb.org, where we provide with business listings for free for consumers to check them out. So we invite you to visit our website and find a reputable and trustworthy business there.
And every year, the Better Business Bureau of Canada comes out with a scam tracker risk report and a top 10 list of fraudulent scams that are ripping off Canadians. Can you explain the criteria used to rank the risk index?
Yeah, so the Better Business Bureau, as you mentioned, we have this amazing risk report. It's called the Scam Tracker Risk Index Report, which we've been publishing every year since 2016. And we receive a number of reports each year. Last year, in 2024, we received more than 81,000 reports. And so we use that data to analyze, to look at what are the most common scams that are being perpetrated, who is more at risk. And we also look at the financial and non-financial losses as well. So this is a tri-dimensional process. Then we look at the exposure, we look at the susceptibility, and we look at the losses. And then we learn from this, and then we can further educate consumers and businesses on some of the red flags and how to prevent from falling a victim to them.
Cryptocurrency and investment scams were at the top of the list. So what makes these so attractive, and what do we need to be on the lookout for?
So the adage, don't invest something that you can't afford to lose, it applies here. But what we are really talking about here is investment in general and using cryptocurrency as a form of investment in particular, inherently is high risk. So we are talking about, though, criminal professional crime organizations who will make a connection with you via one of the social media platforms, be it a dating website or an investment forum, and they will offer you an opportunity. So they're going to be in connection with you. They're going to work on gaining your trust. And once the trust is established, they're going to come up with the amazing investment opportunity that they want you to be a part of. And it usually starts low. So you are asked to invest very small amount of money. They may even show you a website where you can track that money. And then so you are giving them that trust and you continuing to invest more and more. And at a point when you are no longer comfortable with this investment and you want to put a stop to it, but then you are seeing yourself in a situation when they're not letting you. They come up with excuses for why you cannot take your return out of this investment. They may say things such as you need to pay other fees and taxes on top of that. And for whatever scenario they have, the idea is, the bottom line is, you are trapped in that. But we encourage everyone that at any point in time, when you are seeing the red flags of an investment scam, don't be afraid to move back. So to stop, disengage, stop connections, stop communications, and go reach out to your financial institution, to your bank, go to your local police, and talk with someone with your family or your friends, with your network. Talk about it, as you are not alone. This happens more often than we realize.
Now, employment scams were number 2 on the list. Can you explain how that one works?
Well, employment scam is definitely second most riskiest scam in Canada for the second year in a row. And so the way this works, there's a few different variables, but the most common scenario is we are seeing in our reports is that the scammer, the fraudster, will set up a fake website where they are either posing job openings, or they will just connect with you via social media messaging, or they'll send you a text message and they'll say they have this great offer for you. Or they may say they found your resume on one of the job boards. And then so from there, really, things start to move really quickly. They may jump ahead and send you an offer that just looks too good to be true, with all the attractive deals, high salary, work from home, flexible hours. So they're very attractive. And they may send you, they'll say, there's a link for you to apply. This is the only way we accept applications, through this link. So what they're really looking for is your information. They want your legal name. They want your date of birth. They want your SIN number. So if we think about it, employment scams can be or can have ties to identity theft type scams. So it's very important to stop and think, research the company, make sure you are dealing with a legitimate company, make sure the posting exists, check out their social media pages, look up reviews on the company, on the position as well, to compare everything. We just need to always be cautious.
And what about romance or relationship scams? What are some warning signs that we should be aware of?
Well, the romance or the relationship type of scam really has close ties to the investment or the cryptocurrency type of scams. And it does happen very similar to the investment scam. So the same scenario, perhaps you're dating on a website, on a public website, and then there's somebody who shows up, they're presenting themselves as the best fit, or they have all the qualities, they match with what you are looking for within your profile. And then they really, they move on quickly. So, but again, they want to gain your trust. They may say that they love you a little too soon. And then they are working on that process of gaining fully your attention and your trust. It may take a few days or weeks or months until they come up with an investment opportunity. So you need to look out at red flags, such as the relationship moves on too fast, they want to move in with you really, really soon. And then they bring in money into discussion. They're going to present you pictures of their luxurious life, their luxurious vehicles and homes and vacation plans. So the all looks too good to be true scenario applies here.
And we have a fairly significant senior population in the Lethbridge area. Are seniors at a higher risk of scams, and what age groups are more susceptible?
Well, all age groups, unfortunately, can be a target of a scam. To say that only seniors, that's simply not true. As we've discussed employment scams just earlier, that really targets those aged 18 to 44. So, but what we are commonly seeing for seniors is the grandparent scam and bank imposter scam.
And then on the flip side of risks for seniors is the risk to our youth. Apparently, scammers are targeting younger people as well. What does the younger generation need to be looking out for?
So, younger generation, often we hear that they think they can be smarter than the scammers, they can outsmart the scammers. So, we say information is power. That's a dangerous notion to play around, to say that we can outsmart the scammers. So information is power, education is crucial. We at the Better Business Bureau, we offer free presentations, free workshops for everyone in our serving area, including the youth. And Fraud Prevention Month, March is Fraud Prevention Month. The Better Business Bureau, we partnered up with other fraud prevention partners to educate and to spread the awareness and the fraud prevention tips to help everyone to prevent them from falling a victim to a scam.
And now we have a federal election just around the corner. Are election scams a thing, like where parties are, or people pretending to be from a certain political party are asking for donations?
That can happen, absolutely. We are seeing some of the charity scams as well, some of the donations. Anyone can pretend to be anyone. So we need to be on the lookout. And the best thing to do really in any scenario is do your research all the time. Use the internet, come on bbb.org, see what information we have on the individual, on a company to make an informed decision.
Online purchases continue to be a risk. How are people getting caught online, and what are the no-nos to watch out for?
So if you are planning to purchase online, just make sure that, again, then you are looking up that company. Is the company legitimate? Is the website secure? Look for the HTTPS in the URL. And then view the products that company is selling. Do a Google reverse image search. Make sure that the website that product doesn't come up in any other websites. If they do, then potentially it could be a stock picture so that the products don't even exist. And if you can plan on using credit cards, if there's any issues with it down the road, then you can dispute with your financial institution. And again, do your research on the company, on the products, read reviews, ask for references.
And advance fee loans is another common scam. How does this typically get presented?
Well, that would be, it's targeting those who are already in a financial need. So if you are looking for a loan from a traditional bank and for whatever reason that is not accessible to you, then you have the option to look for alternative options, and you're looking at loan companies. And so when the loan company comes to you and says, we are offering you this loan, quick offer, we guaranteed, we are don't even look in or don't even doing a credit check, we are just giving you this money. However, we need money to be paid up front for the loan to be released. So that is the advance fee loan. So they are asking money from you before they give you the money. That's illegal, and that's the risk, and that's the scam. So loan companies, legitimate and trustworthy loan companies, will never ask you to pay money up front.
Now, tax scams have been going around for a while. What is it about them that try to convince people that these people are actually with Canada Revenue Agency?
Yes, so the tax type of scam, the CRA type of scam, we call them the authority scam. What they do, especially during the tax season, is they're going to call us or text messages, and they'll say they're representing the government. And then they immediately say that there's, they're using the threat or the reward, the stick or the carrot. So they're going to say there's some issues, you haven't filed your taxes, you owe money to the government. If you're not paying it immediately, you're in big trouble. They're going to put you in jail. So really, we always have to verify any of this kind of information directly with the government. Never trust our caller ID. Never trust somebody who's threatening us over the phone. And governments will never engage with us in a phone conversation to threaten us to pay the money that we owe them, and if not, then they're going to put us in jail.
So because the scam has been going on for a while, is it still a very common one, or have people already caught on that this is not legitimate? Like, I mean, I think the big red flag is when you have to pay your taxes with Walmart or Amazon gift cards.
Exactly. Unfortunately, this is still continuing to occur, and we have those who are new to Canada, new Canadians, to understand that that's not how things work. That's not how a government operates. And that, as you said, governments will never ask us to pay if we owe anything to them, will never ask us to pay via gift cards, via Amazon or iTunes cards. It always has to go through the bank, through a means of transaction that can be traceable.
Any final reminders for our viewers on how to sniff out a scam? And tell us about how the BBB website can be of help as well.
Yeah, so definitely I will just end up saying that a healthy skepticism is always good. It comes handy. So don't believe everything that you see or read. The too good to be true. If something is too good to be true, it probably is. This is an old tip in the books, but it still applies. And then always be careful and cautious whenever you are sensing that the urgency. When there is a sense of urgency, someone is pressuring you to do something, to act quickly, that's always a red flag. And yes, please visit our website, bbb.org. We have many free services for consumers. You can visit our scam tracker that can be found on bbb.org/scam tracker. And you can view our most recent scam tracker risk report also on our website.
Odetta Durofte is the Manager of Community Outreach and Education with the Alberta and East Kootenay branch of the Better Business Bureau. Odetta, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm Naveen Day. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, thanks for watching.